Okay,
Thank you.
we'll call to order the May 27th meeting of the Finance Committee. I guess, should we call the roll? Just,
No.
it's pretty quick. Just,
I don't think you need to.
no, I don't think so either.
Just moving the agenda.
Let me get
We know
ready.
we're-
So, well, I think the first thing is, from my memory from reading, the first thing is the budget. Could you please, while I'm bringing up the agenda here?
Okay. This should look pretty familiar. It hasn't changed since the last board meeting. So this what will be proposed at the June board meeting. We're all familiar with the timeline. The reduction of expenses, nothing has actually changed here. The governor's budget proposal, we are hearing more things about the cyber charter, possibly capping it. And in addition to that, they said 8,000, but we don't think it'll be 8, it'll be 10, 12 maybe. And then in addition to that, that was just for regular tuition. They also were going to put some kind of stipulation on special ed. Because right now you go from a regular ed at $14,000 tuition and a special ed at $27,000. Our special ed has tiers based upon the whatever needs there are. And I think there's 3 tiers. Well, there's only 2, regular and special ed, when it comes to tuition. They want to try proposing adding the tiers into special or cyber charter tuitions, because, and then creating the levels. So tier 1 could possibly be speech. And that might be, $16,000 instead of $27,000. So they're going to try to introduce some type of tiers within the cyber charter tuition. Again, so that's what we're hearing. Nothing's been,
Sure.
anything solid yet. The next one is the approved 1.78 millage increase. And that leaves us with a shortfall of the 3.5. This was just the graph of how the real estate property taxes are pretty much used between retirement feasors and cyber charter. This is the impact of the 1.78% millage increase, which will yield about $490,000. And we did discuss the impact that it does have to the general fund balance. This year, I'm hoping we end at a balance, but cyber charters have really taken a toll on flipping our balance a little bit, but we're hoping we receive a little bit more income than we thought, revenue than we thought. And we're hoping to offset that by the increased cost of the cyber charters. And this was the equalized mill rate. We're 4th from the bottom. And that was pretty much, like I said, you've seen the presentation. Okay.
Is anybody else having computer issues? I can't get on.
I did previously, but he had to fix it. So
Okay.
We have a paper
Okay,
agenda. That
great,
would be helpful.
but I think the next thing was something else from
It
you.
was
It was,
the reports, the board reports.
yeah, okay.
This is a snapshot of April. These are the revenues.
Mhm.
And I introduced this at the last board meeting. So this is what our new board reports will look like. And we can discuss, what to add, what to change. This is what Pennsylvania schools went to PASBO and Forecast 5 and said, this is what we want our dashboard to look like. And this is what they came up with: local revenue, state revenue, federal revenue, comparing it for the last 3 years, 23, 24, 25. And this is probably hard to read. I'll get you printed copies. That would probably be easier. And then it just breaks down those into the local revenue with the real estate, the state revenue, that's your basic ed, that's your subsidies, and then your federal revenue, which is your title and your access. So this was just a snapshot of where we are for April. And we are at 90% of your local, about 80% of your state. We're over on federal because of those ESSER funds that we got in this year instead of last year. And you'll notice next year, when you look at the federal, the very large blue in 2023, next year when that year actually drops off and you go into 26, you'll see that look much more like 24, 25 because of those ESSER funds. And this report does a nice job of comparing last year to date, 24, it compares this year to date, and then it compares this year to date to the budget. So it does a really nice job of giving you those numbers and the percentages. Any questions? Okay,
Well,
Anybody?
sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth,
Thank you.
please.
It's a nice format and everything, but as long as we still have, we want to see the same reports though that we have now, where it goes by the categories and then the things that were already purchased. So this is a nice thing to add, but I don't want to see this supersede what we have. In fact, I keep going back to what we keep talking about. I still want to see the budget broken down by school campus. I mean, that's what I'm interested in. I mean, this is all good. These are all good, but it doesn't explain anything except it is good to compare and to see how much money is in every fund. But again, I'm going back to, I like to see it by campus. And as long as we still keep the other reports.
Yeah, a report like this that showed each individual school would be ideal.
Yeah.
We don't break, I mean, we break down the bills of payment that way. And that shows you, you know, what they, and that's the budget, that is per the budget, what was spent for each school. But we can keep looking because this is that report, this is that program that we've had for a while. That we'll keep digging in to see what they can do. Okay.
Yep.
I will do that. And then this is, well, maybe. Okay. Not sure why it's not working.
There it is.
Nope, that was the revenue again.
The church expenses then.
Yeah.
The church expenses.
Oh, it is? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, okay, sorry.
They look very similar.
Yeah, I do. Again, this is the same kind of layout. Your salaries and benefits, your purchase services and your supplies. And it shows you, again, your year to date for 24, 25, and then your budgeted year to date. But I'm sure you want to see the breakdown of the expenses.
Sure. Bill?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, like this is just good basic information. But again, like if it was broken down by building, by campus, we would know how many employees are there, how many, you know, electric, sewer, water, everything. So it would be comparing this year's cost to last year's cost, how many students are there, how many teachers are there. This doesn't, it's good for an overview, but there's nothing to evaluate here.
It's typically what boards see. TASPO did a whole review and research on what school boards would like to see, what type of dashboard. And this is what, again, I'm just saying, this is what typically boards do see. And this is kind of after the fact of the budget. But again, we can dive down and see what else they have. They have many, many reports.
Yeah, something that can actually evaluate. This is like the end of the, well,
This is just an overview.
Yeah.
It's a high level
Yeah.
overview,
Yeah.
but like I said, this is what Pennsylvania school districts asked for. So for the next, probably in the fall, we'll get through the budget. In the
Okay.
fall, we'll look at a deeper dive into the more. What I trying to do though is get away from the Excel spreadsheets, the line item Excel spreadsheets, and give you more of a dashboard type looking report.
I like the itemized. I don't. That's
Well,
me.
and there might be, there probably is a dashboard report that's more itemized. But we
Okay.
want to get away from the Excel looking antiquated reports. And that takes long to prepare. We
Okay.
want to have something that we can push a couple buttons with our two new systems and give you something that,
That would be
and what you
ideal
need.
for you. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
yeah, that's what
we-
we're looking for. We're moving more towards that. So, okay.
Jeff, you have anything?
Nope.
No. Chris, you have anything? else? Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Stop sharing. Okay.
the auditing contract. I think that's you again.
It is, yes. So attached to the agenda is the auditing contract from Baker Tilly. So I want to just kind of make a couple of comments. Our 3-year contract is up with them. And having thought through this process, so this year, a couple of things are happening. We are transitioning to a new software program, and that is a huge undertaking. We are also, the tax office will be reformed into either closing or some type of no longer having EIT. So the tax office probably won't even be an entity that needs to be audited. So, and then there will be, lots of things that we need to make sure that get cleaned and cleared up for the tax office. So just alone, those two variables, I felt as if, felt as if that was not a good year to also bring on a new auditor. So if we want to, in the future years, do an RFP for a different auditor, I'd absolutely recommend that. I just didn't think this year, moving into a new software program, closing of the possible closing of the tax office, it was a good time to mix a whole new auditing company, possibly all new auditing company with, with those two new variables. So they came in and they gave us a proposal that was very acceptable to what they
Is this
have
the
given us in the
proposal?
past. I'm sorry, yes. It's not a contract, it's a proposal.
Oh, okay.
Correct, yes, yeah, I said that wrong. It's a proposal.
Mm-hmm, yeah, good.
And as you can see, they outlined for the school district 25, 26, 27, and then just for year ended this year for the tax office. They did note that if there's any kind of residual cleanup they have to do, and this is all dependent upon what we do with the tax office, they would just do it per basis, of hours per basis. But these are very comparable to what the increases have been over the years. They're just familiar with our systems, are familiar with our staff, they're familiar with our procedures. Again, I would absolutely propose the next go round that we receive other RFPs as well.
Go ahead, Chris.
You said at the beginning here that the tax office might not even need to be audited.
Correct.
Why is that? Wouldn't they, what do they bring in? Average like 35 to 40 million?
So
And
that's
you wouldn't want to
EIT.
audit that?
So EIT, remember, the TCC voted to no longer use our services. So EIT is moving. The tax office is no longer collecting EIT taxes.
Okay,
So that takes out 75% of what we would bring in as far as the tax office.
I'm sorry, just a word of correction. I'm so
Mhm.
sorry. It's the school board majority that chose not to collect the IT.
I'm sorry,
The
you're
correct.
TCC
yeah,
didn't choose that. They were sideblind.
they
Yes.
got the boot.
They
Yep,
were
they
actually
got the
very
boot.
well prepared. They've heard a lot, but you're right. The school board chose not to continue to collect the EIT services for TCC. So having that ended December 31st, we will no longer collect those. So the only taxes left, and this is what the school board would have to decide what we do with business privilege tax, LST tax, and real estate.
Mhm.
Real estate really isn't a tax office tax, it's a general fund tax. So that could be collected by a general fund person, an employee. So the school board would have to decide, what to do with business privilege tax and LST. If the board decides to keep the tax office open and collect those, then yes, we would be audited.
Okay,
You are correct.
that's what I was wondering.
And we'll have a whole discussion about that. You would be very upside down, if, to have a tax office, just collect those two taxes because they don't bring in as much revenue as, a consistent revenue as the EIT did. But that's a whole decision for the board.
Right. Okay. And now, did we generally always do a 3-year contract?
We
I
have.
thought last year we voted for a new contract on them.
No, it ends this year.
Okay,
Yep, it ends
so
this
it's
year.
always a 3-year
It
deal.
typically is. You can go 5. Typically you don't go less than 2, just because it's kind of a rhythm to get 3 years. And changing every 3 years is a lot, with new systems and a lot with the staff.
Okay,
But I can see, it's always good to do RFPs. I'm just not sure this year was a very good idea with the changing of the software.
okay.
I'd like the staff to get really, really acclimated with the software before we go switching an auditor.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth.
The only thing I ask, now this isn't the contract, so
No.
when we do see the contract, I just wanted to share this with the board. I would like this written in the contract for us to consider this, that Baker Tilly meets with the board 3 times. Before they start, what's their game plan, what's their timeline? Halfway through, so we can kind of find out where we are. And then we only get a presentation then when they're completely done, then they give a presentation to us, because this year, what they did was they came and tried to give us a presentation before they were even done with the audit, and we never got a final presentation. So that's what I'd like to see in the contract, that however we decide to break it down, whether it's twice they meet with us or 3 times they meet with us, but absolutely, they are not to give us a final presentation until their audit is completely done. But I want that in the contract so that doesn't happen again, okay?
Yeah,
They meet with the chair, the finance chair at the very, very beginning.
Well,
And
then they can meet with however you want to work it out, but just so we're,
And then the board gets a introductory booklet every year as well. After the finance chair meets with them, then the board is given a propose of what the upcoming year is going to look like. But
okay.
that can be up to the finance chair what they chose to do.
Yeah, because technically the board members don't work outside of each other, so having a chairperson, having these private meetings, that's, I'm not sure that's a good idea, but
Anybody else? Jeff, you have anything?
Well, that meeting you're referring to is not a private meeting. I mean, it is. I mean, because all it is a 10-minute overview of what the procedures are going to be. I mean, it's not a secret meeting where they're making deals for the board. I mean, it's the same information that they're going to give the board. It's just that they, rather than doing with everybody, they take the finance chair and they talk to them.
Well, maybe we can, if they're gonna, presumably set up a meeting with me, maybe we can just set it up and have everybody come. you
Yeah,
know.
that'd be lovely.
I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Mhm.
The only thing I question is, I certainly buy your reasoning on, switching horses in midstream, so to speak, but do we need a 3-year contract before we check around to see if we can get a better deal? That's the only question that I would raise.
Would you feel comfortable with 1 year?
What do you think, Jim?
Johnny, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're not locked into 3. If I remember, can't we? Because I know at the IU, we have Baker Tilly,
Mhm.
and that question came up there about, having a 3-year deal, and they said that we could look at it at the end of every year. And I don't know whether that's
I can
for
ask that.
everybody.
Okay,
I can ask
why
that.
don't we do that, please?
That would be at the end of the fiscal year, right, Jeff?
Yes.
In
Yeah.
June. In June.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
whenever the contract would renew.
Okay.
So it would be if you wanted to
Which looks like
switch,
it's July 1st.
or if you,
June
yeah, it's
30th,
usually
you
the,
know.
the beginning of July, at the end of the
Yeah.
fiscal year. And I think at least that was our understanding there, because somebody brought that up and they said, no,
Yeah,
you
I'll ask.
you can revisit it at the end of the,
So I guess we would take this as if we stayed with them, this is what we would pay
right.
Okay,
versus actually locking us in. So I'll ask that.
all right.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else on that item?
Mm.
No? Okay. Third party staffing evaluation.
No, interest earnings next.
I had switched the
Well, I'm
order.
looking here and let
Right.
me go. I am online now.
Yeah, number 4. is
Whatever the
interest
gremlin
earnings.
was decided to leave. Well, it's coming up. Auditing is next on the online one too, so I don't care. You want to do the interest next? Do the interest.
I only did that because Frank is actually doing the third party staffing evaluation. He's not here yet. That's the only reason why I switched those 2 items around.
Okay, go ahead.
So your interest earnings, we'll look right online for that. So the general fund, as of 24-25 has made about 120,000. At the end of, these are all pretty much at the end of April. The CD, the $7 million CD has, made $717,813. That is up June 5th is when that matures, when it expires.
Mhm.
We will probably not renew that right away until we want to get through June to see how June ends. And it really is going to depend on the rates. If we
Yeah.
get a rate over 4, 4.5, 4.25, we would put it in a CD. But right now our money market's a little over 4. So we might as well keep it in the money
Sure.
market where it's a little more liquid than the
Mhm.
CD.
Yeah.
But it's really going to depend on the rates and we can talk about that then.
Yes, I haven't checked in a few weeks, but
Yeah,
the,
that right now
the
you're.
CD rates were less than what I was getting in the money
Right,
market.
exactly. So why put it, lock it in a CD?
Yeah.
But if they can give us a nice 3-month one, we'll consider it. but We'll look.
Okay, that works.
And
Uh,
your money market has earned about 872,000. And your Fund 39, which is your Liberty Curtain project, that starting balance was 9.5. We are down to about 2.9. So we're looking at, towards the end of the project, still pretty nice having about $3 million in there. I think we will use all of that plus some of the committed money that's sitting in the general fund. I don't think we'll use all of it, but I do think we'll use some of that money, and I can give you a better idea once they kind of start the demolition and see where we are with that. I think that's June 9th, I believe, is what they said.
What's
If we,
expected? Oh,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What other expected expense would there be? Because,
None that I'm aware.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
none that I'm aware
None that we are aware of
No.
now. Sorry,
No.
Chair
No
Bill.
problem.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that I don't, but kind of going into the project, we knew we would use more than the bond amount. That's why we had set aside that committed amount in the general fund. We kind of knew that going in. I don't think we'll use all that we committed. So that's kind of a good thing. So that's kind of where that was going. Nothing that I hope not. I don't anticipate anything else.
So is this money left over from what we've borrowed, or is this?
So this is what's the 2.9
Yeah.
is what's still in there, but we still have, we will
That's,
use
but
that.
that's money we borrowed. Okay,
Yes,
now,
that is borrowed.
if we don't spend it, can we prepay?
We will spend that.
They're gonna spend, they're not done with all
We're
the
gonna
bills
spend that
yet.
amount. We still have outstanding retainage, just the retainage of all of the four vendors will,
Yeah, they're gonna spend that plus some of the other dedicated monies, what you're
Alright.
saying.
that will be gone.
Okay,
Yes. And then the First National Bank Fund 15 has made about $540 for
Okay,
the year. Okay,
all right.
third party
So
stuff.
that's,
I can tell you
That's
what I
it.
know.
tell us, well, you told me stuff. Tell them
Okay.
what you told me. Just, you know,
I believe Frank wanted to propose to bring in a third party, non-biased staff, a company to do a staff evaluation, to look at administrators, to look at principals, to look at teachers and what staffing we have just around the whole district, and evaluate the areas that we may be appropriate and where we are staffed, or areas that we're over or under. He thought it might be advisable to have someone outside of the district do that. So that's why it's on here. Haven't
Alright.
reached out to anybody. I think he wanted to get your opinion of what you thought about that.
any comments on that?
Perfect.
Isn't that his job?
I-
That would be the superintendent's job to know what the staffing levels are and where they need to be. Why pay an outside entity to do it? And then on top of it, how much money are you even looking at?
That I can't answer.
Yeah, let's not attack the messenger here, you know.
No, I'm not. I'm just,
Yeah,
I would think that that's his job to do that.
I believe it was around, and don't hold me to this, but I thought it was around 20,000. Don't hold me to that number,
Okay.
because I'm not.
Cause after the last meeting we had, if you guys remember, I brought up about we should take a section of the budget every month
Mhm.
and we should go through it and look at it and work with Joni and Christie on it.
Mhm.
And Frank told me after the meeting over, he was upset that I said that. That's his job to do. And now here we are with this, and this is his job to do. That's the way I look at it.
okay. You have anything?
No.
Done? Okay. Elizabeth, go ahead.
I agree with Chris, and we have an HR department. So, and we also have the board.
Mhm.
So the way I've always viewed this as an option is the employee superintendent and HR, they make up a flow chart, a list, balancing number of the students, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the board goes into executive session with those employees, and we discuss the pros and cons of keeping or releasing whomever based on data. So I would, considering we are heading towards insolvency, I think only things on priority should be spent.
I'd need a lot more info.
Yeah, to me, this doesn't, so we could just table this?
Okay. Jeff, you have anything?
Well, I can't speak for Frank, but I think probably where he's coming from with this is to, and you're right. I mean, it is superintendent's job to look at staffing and so on and make recommendations. But I think what he probably would tell you is that if you got an unbiased opinion or somebody who's not as close to it, that they could come and do like a wide view of the entire operation and see what their recommendations would be as to where you're, like Joni said, where you're understaffed, overstaffed, whatever, and where you might become more efficient. I think, it's like any of the other consultants who would bring in to do any kind of view of of whatever operation you're having them examine. And you could accept or reject whatever they say. And maybe they would come to the board and say, hey, you guys could save X number of positions if you did this.
Right.
So I think that's where he's coming from with it. But like I said, I can't speak for him and he certainly would have more information.
Well, here he is
Speaking the
now.
devil there. Here he
Just in
comes.
the nick of time.
I was just speaking.
Joni presented what she knew about the third-party staffing evaluation, so.
Okay,
you
I
may
apologize
take it from
for
there.
my tardiness. There's
No
been some
problem.
weird things going on around the district today.
You think it's gonna lead to a lawsuit?
I don't know if I want to talk about that at the moment.
So that's a yes.
So
Okay.
So often when a school district is trying to find ways to significantly reduce costs, we know that it's going to impact staff. And there's a couple of different ways we can do that. I think for a district our size, for the amount that we are looking to change our expenditures, I think it would make sense for us to look at a third party to come in and take a look at everything that we're doing with staffing and help us talk through everything from class sizes, administrative structure, our non-professional staff, our operational staff, kitchen, PSO, everything. We'll look at all of our staffing and say, okay, for the amount of buildings, for the class sizes, all of that stuff, you have too much, you have too little, you have the just right size, whatever, and then give us some specific recommendations for how we should think about making staffing changes to reduce our expenditures around staffing. It costs money to do that, is the downside. I reached out to one organization, we've reached out to 3 organizations, and I have a specific quote back from one of about $20,000. It's a lot of money, but if you think about one professional staff, a teacher is about, between pay and benefits, about $150,000. If we can gain 1 or 2 staff members, whether it be administrative, professional staff, whatever, that we would get sort of paid back that amount of money.
Okay.
So I wanted to put it in front of the finance committee to see what you thought about that, and if that was an idea that we could bring to the full board once I have the quotes from these 3 organizations that I've asked to, 2 of which I know provide that specific service. The other one, I don't know if they do or not. That's why I want to kind of hold off before I talk about who I'm getting that from. But if it's okay with the finance committee, I'll bring it to the full board in terms of a quote or a set of quotes that we can look at for that work.
Jeff, you want to?
Well, I think it would certainly be willing to listen to it. I mean, bring it to the board with what you find out and see if it's, cost effective to do it or not. I mean, I'd certainly be willing to listen to whatever proposals you come up with. I mean, I don't think we have anything to lose to hear what you come up with. Personally,
Chris?
Yeah, I brought up, you weren't here, but I brought up the fact that you got a little irritated that I was asking questions about the budget the last time you and I talked about. And you told me that was your job.
Mhm.
And I said, okay. And I said, I looked at this as, isn't this your job? So
Sure.
I just had questions, and then Elizabeth brought up about, we have the
Let
HR. department.
Elizabeth speak for herself.
Okay, I'll let
No, it's
Elizabeth
okay.
speak
It's
for her,
okay.
but
It's all right.
my question on it was, isn't this what you're already doing?
Yes, there have been some conversation in the board about whether we're looking at all potential avenues for this, and I wanted to provide this as an option to the board. If you think it's feasible, if you think it makes sense to have a third party look at it.
I'd be
I wanna-
willing to listen to it
Yeah,
and
just have it.
hear.
It certainly is typically between myself and the business manager. It's our job to do this. It can provide the perception of a more objective view of looking at what things to change if you have someone who's not on the team, so to speak, taking a
Right.
look at what are the opportunities for cost savings.
Okay, that's just question.
Yep, no, it's a fair question, because
Elizabeth?
Okay, yes, I I understand the objectivity of it and the rationale, I really do. But this is the part that I'm concerned about. And no matter how I say it, it's gonna sound horrible,
Okay,
but it is going to be very difficult to find a consulting firm that actually is unbiased and that they have a full understanding though of our economic base, our community members, the culture of our community. There are so many things, so many layers, that just bringing in someone who has an algorithm, who can punch in some numbers, and then a report comes out, are two totally different things.
and I'm not suggesting that we look at consultants who just use an algorithm like that. They actually do the in-depth study and look at tax base, and they go pretty far in depth.
Okay. And also when they're looking at this, if they're only looking at people and not also the districts, the redistricting options.
Hmm.
Moving, let's say, the line for this school building over here at the same time. Because we do have estimates, of course, our estimates on population growth for the next
Mhm.
few years out. So what I'm looking at is more of a whole picture versus, okay, this is where we are right now. And we can save X amount of dollars if we do X, Y, and Z. And I also, for the consultant, is this someone who's been institutionalized? Is this organization institutionalized? What I mean by that, this is the way they've always viewed public school. And this is their reality, and this is where their base and their foundation's coming from. Now, if this consultant is very institutionalized, like you have to have a principal here, you have to have an assistant principal here, you have to have this person here. Or would the consultant have more of a 21st century view that, okay, maybe we don't need a principal here. Just because you've always had a principal there, maybe you don't need a principal there. Now I'm just using the word principal as an example, please. So what I'm trying to say is this consulting firm, if it's just an algorithm, someone who's institutionalized, I'm not interested, I'll be honest with you, because I feel amongst all of us, we can do an equally decent job. But if you show me something that's not like that, you've got my attention.
Okay,
My opinion is, that my experience in the past with consultants isn't all that great. They usually at very large expense tell you what you've told them.
That's what I'm saying.
So I would not be excited about this myself.
okay.
So,
That's-
so what do you want to do, guys? You want to bring it to the full board or?
I'd hear it out.
All right,
You gotta look at all sides before you make a
all
decision.
right, Elizabeth?
Like I said at the last facilities meeting before the last facilities meeting, I don't want to take anyone's voice away. Okay? They want to propose something and let the other folks, I'm gonna try to stay as objective as possible.
Jeff?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with hearing.
So we'll
I think you got
put it on for the next meeting. Or
Depending
when-
on when I can get the information
Oh,
from these groups, so
okay.
yes,
Yeah.
but whenever that time, my hope is that I can have it. I don't know if I'll have it for next week.
That's
So the
fine.
next week is impossible.
I don't think we have to, you've got, I don't think you're gonna make any radical changes before September, so we
Correct.
got a
Well,
year, we got
yeah,
15 months to go. so,
We have some time, and I think perhaps as you were alluding to, Elizabeth, the June meeting is busy enough.
Yeah.
I saw that. Wow.
Yeah, that's.
June meetings are always, there's a lot of stuff to get
Right.
done.
Okay.
Anybody have any other business? Elizabeth, please.
Yes, thank you. Maybe at the work session, we can get an update on the Keystone Summer Camp. to see how many people have enrolled, what the budget is, for the
Well,
kids camp.
Yeah, I understand. So the budget has already been established.
Right, but if we're okay, or,
But how much you gonna have left over now because we're not doing anything with Sugar Valley?
oh,
For-
okay.
For
I
the,
think that's community feeding.
yeah, are you talking about community feeding or are you talking about the summer
This is
camp
just
program
summer
that we
camp.
run?
From the kids
Oh, okay, I
program.
was mixing
That's okay,
summer
that's
camp
okay.
with feeding.
Yeah. Right. So we do overlap those things. We run the summer feeding at the same time we run the summer
That's
camp,
what
but
I thought.
they're distinct programs.
My memory, if I'm right, we passed an amount that,
Yes.
and you could do what you could do with it.
Yep.
Okay, so,
Yeah, but it would.
I don't know if we'll have any information yet. I know that
Yeah.
enrollment's been going on. I've talked a
Okay.
little bit with Kurt about that. It may be a little bit early next
Okay.
week to have anything substantial to talk about.
Okay, and then I have a follow-up to that, sir.
Mr. Lynch? Who's Kurt?
Kurt.
Is that
Kurt
Mr.
Lynch,
Lynch?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Poor CTC. He gets the job done though.
He does,
May I,
yeah.
Mr. Bill?
Yeah, go ahead,
Follow-up?
please.
Okay, a follow-up to that is, I still don't know where they're housed. I believe it's Rob, but don't worry. Kinder Care, the for-profit daycare for
Champions
champions, yes,
Yes.
they're all together.
at Robb Elementary, yes.
Yes, okay. They actually run a summer camp.
They do.
So we've never been given that option, so maybe next year, okay, instead of us giving it to them, maybe. Just an option. They do it in other places.
Yes, but this is something that we're funding, that the school district is funding and has always funded.
Mhm.
Passing it to Champions, either we'd have to give them a dollar amount or they'd be charging the parents.
Well, I'm just saying for next year's conversation, it's another option,
Okay.
okay?
When
So-
it comes up in the budget, that we can talk
Mhm,
about that
yep,
then, you know.
yep.
Yeah. Anything else? Anybody have any other business? All right, then, at whatever time it is, 3:43, we're gonna adjourn, okay?
Yes, sir.